What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Sunday night recap presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Simon, joined as always by my beautiful, handsome, and jamming out co-hosts, Jay, Josh, and JL. What's up?
What's happening? That intro music, man.
After this week.
Yeah, it's been ugly, boy. I tell you.
Oh God, that song, FanDuel, whoever picked that song for you, props to them because it gets me hyped up every time. I'm a sucker for a good bass line, and I'm going to say it each and every week. Man, we've had some wild football today so far. I know we keep on saying that, but I was watching the games earlier, and I was like, man, seems like there's been a lot of turnovers today. And midway through the third quarter of the 1 p.m. slate, there had already been 22 turnovers. I don't know what the final count was, but it has been
all
a wild day. All from Big Ben. Every single turnover was from Big Ben. It's incredible, really. Guys, before we get started, a couple things. Number one, if you are watching this, that means you are on the FanDuel YouTube or Twitch channels. If you're on Twitch, hit that follow button. And if you are on YouTube, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the FanDuel channel on YouTube. There's a whole team of awesome content creators putting out great content to help you win money and win your leagues. And it's crunch time, guys. We are approaching the fantasy playoffs. So you want to get all that advice you can get going into these playoff weeks. You can also find FanDuel across other platforms like TikTok, Twitter,
MySpace,
Facebook as well, MySpace, Zengai, I think, at FanDuel.
MySpace.
You find them farming in RuneScape.
That's right. Yeah, they have a whole RuneScape department, I believe.
JL, that really scared me when you were going down with the camera. I'm not gonna lie. I'm glad you stopped. Let's just put it that way.
I missed out on this one.
Guys, also, if you want some more of us individually heading into fantasy playoffs time, you can follow all of us on Twitter. Jay is on Twitter at GMinJ, Josh at FYF Josh, JL at FYF John Luke. It's what the JL stands for. And you can find me at FYF Simon. So go ahead and give us all a follow on Twitter as well. For some fantasy advice and then other shenanigans. My Twitter is about half fantasy advice, half not. So enter at your own risk. Guys, before we get into our recap of today, we do like shenanigans. Before we get into our recap of today's games, Maria is in the chat saying, catch me up, y'all. What do I need to know? We got you. That's what we're doing here. And we got Robbie in here, said, done. My man, Robbie. Thank you so much.
Robbie.
That's my brother.
What's up, Crob? He said, done as well. Joey in here saying, I just want to dance. And if you guys could see Joey's dance moves to that intro music, you probably wouldn't even watch us. You would just watch a full hour of that. Jay, I know it was just Thanksgiving, so maybe there was some turkey bowls going on. Robbie wants us to ask you about your appearance in flag football. How did that go for you?
I was going to make fun of you for that and just drag you as soon as you put it in our Slack that you just got finished playing flag football. So I'm very excited to hear about this, Jay.
Yeah, I played well. I had a couple touchdowns. I did have a nice interception as well. We it's more for the kids now. Back in the day.
Of course.
I was,
you were only playing kids.
Yes, it was me. It was actually me and 12 8 to 10-year-olds. I was the only one that was over the
None
age
of them
10.
your own children.
And he was the second leading scorer, guys. He got the second most touchdowns.
And I was the second shortest, believe it or not. No, it was we do it more for the family. My nieces, my nephews come out there. We have some family and friends out there, and it's a lot of fun. So I made some good plays, twisted my ankle, but everything's all good.
Twisted your ankle.
I did.
Next time we get together, we are playing some football, and all three of us are going to mosh
you
on that field.
13th year in a row that we've done that. There's only 2 of us that have been to every single one of them, but some form or fashion, a group of us 13 years in a row on Thanksgiving morning, we play flag.
Wow, that's such an original idea. I wish I had thought of it.
JL, something doesn't have to be original to be fun. No need to be a dirty pooper about playing football.
That one got me.
Did I say we came up with the idea of playing flag football on Thanksgiving? No, we have a tradition. Thank you very much.
Guys, our game tonight, and boy, am I excited for a primetime AFC North showdown, the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens, and it should be a good one, even with Baker a little bit beat up. Josh, I believe you have the lines for this game. I'm curious what the line is set at.
Yes, sir. So the FanDuel Sportsbook has the Ravens as 3-point favorites over the Cleveland Browns. This game also has a 47-point total, so the over-under is set at 47 points. Just so you guys know, I personally like the Ravens to cover the 3-point spread. I'm a Ravens fan, so maybe I'm a little
shocker. I am shocked.
I do think they'll cover the 3-point spread. I still think this is going to be a relatively close game. It could come down to a 1-score game. However, I think the Ravens do come out with the win, and I think it's going to be more than 3 points. I would like to ask your guys' opinion. Simon, as the resident Browns fan here, do you agree or disagree with me here?
I'm very optimistic about the return of Kareem Hunt. This offense was designed around this 2-back system with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at the center, and I'm really excited to see how it looks. Now, that being said, Baker Mayfield is quite banged up. Jarvis Landry's banged up, and outside of Jarvis, they really don't have any great pass catchers. They've got their trio of unstartable tight ends and David Njoku, Austin Hooper, and Harrison Bryant, and then Anthony Schwartz. If I had to bet on this, my heart says the Browns are going to win this game, but I would bet on the same side as you, Josh. I think the Ravens cover the spread. I think Baker's not going to be able to do enough. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to have great games, but man, that Baltimore offense with Lamar is just going to be a little bit too much.
And the Ravens are at home. I do want to, I don't know if I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier. That obviously matters here. JL, you're also a Ravens fan. What do you think?
I am a Ravens fan. I'm not currently in Baltimore. It's just sad. Should have went to that game, but I actually think Cleveland will cover the spread here.
Okay.
Ravens are favored. You said 3 points?
3 points.
Ravens have been playing down to their opponents. And I say playing down to their opponents. They're going to play down to Cleveland tonight. I truly believe that.
Yeah, that is a shot at Cleveland, if we're being honest.
They're playing way down tonight.
Jay and I both taking the emotional hedge on this one.
The first person, you're a Giants fan, so you're completely
I'm the only one
here.
that has no bias in this whatsoever. And yes, Josh, I gave you some crap, but I'm with you. I think the Ravens are. Okay. I have a feeling the Ravens are going to win big tonight. I think Lamar Jackson, it may or may not have to do with that I need a really big game for Lamar Jackson in my home league in fantasy. May have something to do with it, but I honestly do think that the Ravens win big tonight.
Maria agrees with most of the people in here, says Ravens, they can do it. And before we keep talking about this game, I just wanted to highlight this. We have a friend in the chat. He comes in and watch, or they come in and watch all the time. Come here now, Beach 89 was talking some smack. Josh said that Oklahoma State was going to be Oklahoma. I'm really upset. Come here now, Beach 89. He said, Josh, you were right. You were right. I'm sorry.
You did that on the stream a couple days ago where he said, Josh, you, and I had no idea what he was about to say. And then he came in and said, Oklahoma is going to beat you're wrong. Oklahoma's going to beat Oklahoma State. I got to give you props. It was such a good game. This game could go being a real either way. About it. Like, to be completely honest, like Oklahoma State edged this game out. It was a great game to watch. I watched the entire game. But yeah, Oklahoma State did come out on top.
And thank you for being a good sport about it. You've cracked us up twice now with those comments coming out Beach 89. That's awesome. What's up, Kev? Welcome in. Bird up and FanDuel in the chat. What's up, Daddy FanDuel? Glad to have you here. Annie is also taking the Ravens on this one. And you know what? It's been a rough week for Oklahoma fans all around. They found out that Lincoln Riley's leaving for USC as well, which was a big shock. But you got the good games. GG's all around. Josh, sorry for interrupting you on that. So we had more.
That was very important stuff to get to. And I just wanted to mention there's also a few player props that I do like that I was, scrolling through the FanDuel Sportsbook, looking around, and there was 2 player props that stood out to me, one for each team. I like Lamar Jackson with over 238.5 passing yards tonight. So 238.5 passing yards tonight. And then I like the under on Jarvis Landry getting 4.5 receptions. How's that make you guys feel? You like those? You okay with those?
I like those.
I like the Jarvis Landry one for sure, Josh. I am fully with you on the Jarvis Landry one. I think the Cleveland game plan is going to be run some more. That being said, with that game plan, it does make me a little bit hesitant on the Lamar Jackson passing yards prop. I think the name of the game for Cleveland tonight is time control. They're going to try to run the ball, and they're going to try to keep the ball out of Lamar's hands. That means Lamar could have a great game and still not reach that passing total. I think I would avoid that one altogether, but if you made me pick, I would actually take the under on Lamar passing yards. But I like your under on the Jarvis Landry receptions prop.
Yeah, so Lamar Jackson, I understand what you're saying. The Cleveland and the Ravens typically like to run the air out of the ball. They like to control the game clock. But Lamar has averaged over 276 passing yards per game so far this season. And I just think he's healthy. I think he wants to prove that he is, a great quarterback. A lot of people are doubting him right now. So I'm going to go with the over there. And the under on Jarvis Landry, I really like just because I think Marlon Humphrey's going to be covering on all game. And he's dealing with a lot of injuries. And so is Baker Mayfield.
Yes, he is. Guys,
I'll take the under on both.
You're taking the under on both, Jay. What about
okay.
you?
I'm going to take the over on both. I think that if Lamar Jackson does have that type of game, they're going to have to air the ball out more. So may come in garbage time, but I think there's a shot that he gets more than 4 catches.
And just
real quick, I wanted to say C-Rob earlier was my nephew Colin, who was watching. I wanted to give him a shout out and thank you for tuning in. And he tore it up on I have to say, he was one of probably the best player, the MVP of the Turkey Day flag
football.
He was killing it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Guys, we are going to go ahead and move on to our first 1 p.m. game that we are covering today, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles and New York Giants playing off against each other today. The New York Giants coming out on top 13-7.
This game was a stinky pile of poop.
Yes, it was.
It was hard to watch.
It was a very classic NFC East game. Like, I don't know if I've seen a more stereotypical NFC East game, but this was it. Jalen Hurts did not look fantastic. He had 3 interceptions, just very poor decision-making throughout the game. Each of those interceptions, they weren't like deflections on which the defense just got lucky and they got the interception. It was really bad decisions by Jalen Hurts. He didn't throw for very much. And, I think we're starting to see some of the, like, where Jalen Hurts is where he has holes in his game, right? Like we've been leaning on his rushing game all fantasy season. He's given that consistent, like 20 points a game. We didn't see that today. We did not see that again against the Giants, no less. I'm curious to your guys' thoughts on Jalen Hurts going forward. Is he viable as a QB and as an NFL QB? I know his rushing floor or his rushing ability gives him a nice fantasy floor, but as an NFL QB, can the Eagles really rely on Jalen Hurts going forward? Is he a franchise quarterback? Why don't we start with you, Josh?
So you summed it up. As a fantasy quarterback, as long as the Eagles are putting him out there, he's good, because even today, 8 carries for 77 yards. I know he disappointed from a total stat line perspective, but he's still an easy top 10 lock quarterback the rest of the season fantasy wise. But you ask NFL wise, and I don't know, I'd be a little nervous if I was the Eagles. I mean, Miles Sanders, he went down with a little bit of an injury this game. Am I really confident that the Eagles have the best system and players around Jalen Hurts for him to succeed? Not really. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be the starting quarterback for the Eagles the rest of the season. I don't even think that's up for debate anymore. And I think he'll be the starting quarterback for the Eagles going into next year. So he's a fine NFL quarterback in my mind.
Yeah. What about you, Jay? How do you feel about Jalen Hurts as an NFL quarterback?
NFL quarterback, I pretty much agree with everything Josh said, other than with those 3 first-round draft picks, likely 3, depending on what happens with Carson Wentz and the Colts, but likely 3 first-round draft picks. If the right quarterback falls to him, I could easily see them replacing him next year. So fantasy-wise, I think he's perfectly fine. The players are going to have one-off games that are just disappointing. But from an NFL perspective, he hasn't impressed all year long with his passing. So when he's not able to get it done on the ground, this is what you get. So I don't think that he is a long-term option when it comes to an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, just was it 4 games over 200 passing yards this season. This game was no different. He had 129 passing yards, 14 completions on 31 attempts. It's just so low for there.
I got something to say there, JL. The offense completely changed the last 5-6 weeks where they went very run heavy, and you'll see it in Jalen Hurts' stats where he hasn't had over 200 passing yards the last 5 weeks, and that's right around the time that they decided to make this change. So previously they were trying to let Jalen Hurts win games for them, and it wasn't working, and now it's proven that it's better for them as a team to let their running backs get more involved, and I think that's kind of correlated with the lack of passing yards. So I understand what you're saying. But he's so good at running the ball.
So good. Yeah, I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if it's enough. That variability in the passing game. It just I think we're going to see games like this where the Eagles are not they can't stand up to a team that's 4-7. Like the Giants are very beatable, but that's a great.
The Giants are not good. I can speak to that. They are not a good football team.
And Simon, I saw you trying to talk down there. Were you going to say something similar to me with the rushing game?
Yeah, I think they've discovered that they're a more successful football team while rushing the ball. And I don't think that's just directly they don't believe Jalen Hurts can throw. I do think he's improved as a passer this season to last season. Now, this was an atrocious game from him, but I think he can be a franchise quarterback. I think he can improve enough in the passing game to be competent there, and that rushing floor gives him starting upside for any team that he's going to be on. I like Jalen Hurts going forward.
I trust the organization. That's the problem. I think if he was a situation like Baltimore where they built the team around Lamar Jackson, I could be, I don't think he's on the same level as Lamar Jackson, but if they build the offense around him, that's a different story. But I don't trust the Eagles to do that.
Joe, before we move on to our next point, we have a couple questions in here that we got to get to quick because these are some last-second decisions. Justin wants to know, should he go with Lockett or Hollywood Brown? Josh, what do you think here, Lockett or Hollywood Brown?
So, I mean, Hollywood Brown is still questionable for this game, but if Hollywood Brown's in there, I am playing him over Tyler Lockett, especially with how the Seahawks offenses look lately. Hollywood Brown, he's going to be great if he's healthy and playing, so.
I'm exactly with you, Josh. I would start Hollywood Brown if he's playing, Lockett if he's not. So that would be my decision maker. JL, do either of you guys disagree? Would you start Lockett?
No, I go Hollywood.
I disagree. I'm going to go Lockett here. Lockett up against Washington, very beatable defense this year. Outside of what we were all expecting going into it, the injury just really furthers that gap between the two. I do think Marquise Brown is going to be a wide receiver 2 this week, a solid wide receiver 2. But I think Tyler Lockett, I have him just inside the top 12.
Just the way that Russell Wilson's looked since he's come back from injury, plus the boom bust nature of the way that Lockett has played these past couple of years, I can't do it.
Washington.
I'm just excited about JL's call right here. I love it. I love it, JL. I love it. You're
guys,
I love it.
Gentleman's water bet.
Hey, I'm all about it. Gentlemen's
I'm
whatever
down.
bet. Yeah, let's go.
We have another Seahawks versus Ravens wide receiver question here, but this is now the Seahawks 1 versus the Ravens 2.
Wow.
Metcalf or Bateman. I'm switching teams on this one. I'm starting the Seahawks receiver here. It's going to be Metcalf for me. Bateman's been great, but it's not comparable to the type of receiver that DK Metcalf is. Jay, do you agree?
With everything you just said.
JL, are you going contrarian here as well with the Bateman, or are you starting Metcalf?
I'm going Metcalf. I'm sticking with the Seattle wide receiver against Washington.
And Josh, are you on the Metcalf side as well here?
Oh, it's a Metcalf. It's an easy Metcalf for me personally.
And come here now, Beach 89 says, no chance Gibson gets 100 points on Monday night, right? Never say never.
Yeah,
non-zero chance.
No, it's a 0 chance.
There's a non-zero chance. There's a non-zero chance, but it is very, very, very small.
What's the highest scoring fantasy point game ever? Like 50.
Jonathan Taylor was very
about?
Close. He was very close the other day.
If I had to guess, it's probably LaDainian Tomlinson, but I don't know.
It's gotta be like
no, I think it was like Jamal Charles or something. 55 or 56
that's it.
points.
That makes sense. I could see that too.
Yeah. I might be wrong. Whatever.
Sure.
So there's a 0% chance.
It's not likely. I'm sorry. I'm here now. All right. So getting back to this game here,
Yes.
Josh, you mentioned the running game, the Philadelphia running game. Boston Scott, he got more opportunities this week than Miles Sanders. Once again, I know a lot of people are very upset about that. They are expecting Miles Sanders after last week.
I'm lots of people.
Yes. Yeah. I know. Boston Scott also, he had a very costly fumble at the end of this game. We'll get to that, but Boston Scott had 15 carries for 64 yards, rushing touchdown, and 2 receptions on 3 targets, 8 yards. Miles Sanders only had 9 carries for 64 yards and 1 reception on 1 target. It seems like they're going to, this is the Eagles. This is what the Eagles are going to do from now on. It's going to be a split. They're not going to make one guy the main guy going forward. Do either of you disagree? Is there between Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Kenneth Gainwell? I know, Josh, I know you've been off the Philadelphia Eagles running backs for a while.
I'm angry with them right now because Miles Sanders has been killing it yards per carry wise. He is the best running back for them, and he's looked good. Dealt with a little bit of an ankle injury today. So I think that's part of the reason why Boston Scott actually ended up getting more involved in the offense than Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is the guy for me going forward still.
Jay, how about you?
I am so unbelievably frustrated. It blows my mind. I don't get it. I say it every time we talk about Miles Sanders. He had over 7 yards per carry today. I just don't get it. Yeah, he's still. I'm with you. I think it's going to be frustrating. I think he's a low end RB2 because of the usage, and this was without Jordan Howard. So Jordan Howard's going to be back, plus Boston Scott, plus Gainwell. Miles Sanders is the guy that I want. If I had to choose one to start, but yeah. I mean, it's going to be like this where you're going to have days that Boston Scott's higher scoring in fantasy, Jordan Howard's going to be higher scoring in fantasy. You just basically you have to hope that Miles Sanders breaks a long one, which he can. But the way that they're running this backfield, that's just what's going on.
Simon, I know you were the highest on Miles Sanders going into the season. How are you feeling about Miles Sanders' long-term value as of this point?
Yeah, and I'm probably the highest on him still. Like, even with the fewer carries he saw today, he was clearly the best back on the field, like Josh said. And this is an Eagles team that has been winning games. They're not giving up on the season yet. I think Miles Sanders is going to see more usage down the stretch. We'll see these backs kind of take that secondary role. Fingers crossed. That's putting a lot of trust in an Eagles coaching staff that has confused us week in, week out to this point. But man, they're NFL coaches, NFL GMs for a reason. I have to hope that they'll recognize they've got the best chance to win with Miles Sanders getting the workload.
Yeah. Well, outside of Boston Scott and Jalen Hurts, not a single Philadelphia player had over 6.4 PPR fantasy points this week. It was very much a fantasy dumpster fire. Jalen Reagor had it dropped last second Hail Mary on the goal line. There's a lot of mistakes on the Eagles side of the ball, Eagles offensive side of the ball. On the Giants side of the ball, not much to point out here. Similarly to the Eagles, not a single New York player, not named Daniel Jones or Chris Myrick, had over 5.3 PPR fantasy points.
Yeah, of course. The tight end we all expected to score.
Yes.
I'm so mad that this was the exploitable tight end matchup. Receiving options are out. This is like the 1 week you can finally start Evan Ingram, right? Like you can do it. Of course you can start Evan Ingram. Nope.
Of course.
Welcome Chris Myrick.
That's your mistake, thinking you can start Evan Ingram.
Yep. Yeah. Everyone started their Chris Myrick this week. I think there's really not much to take away on the Giants side of this ball with Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard being out. But Saquon Barkley, he was in this whole game. He did not really produce very much. Can Saquon be even considered an RB1 rest of the season in this offense? What do you think, Simon?
That's a tough one. He's not the Saquon that we're used to seeing, right? It doesn't look like a fully healthy Saquon, and this isn't a good Giants offense. He's honestly, instead of considering him up there with like the Dalvin Cooks, the Alvin Kamaras, you're probably looking more at like the Leonard Fournette range, which is a good running back. You're still happy to have them on your team. But
Leonard Fournette had an okay game.
Leonard Fournette had an incredible game.
Slightly.
Unreal. What was it? 5 touchdowns? But
4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns, but
killed it.
Yeah, I'm not saying Saquon Barkley scoring 4 touchdowns every week. I'm just saying how people value players.
The Giants can't score 4 touchdowns, so you can't.
He's a high-end RB2, back-end RB1 rest of season.
How do you feel about Saquon, Josh?
Simon summed it up pretty well. I would say he's a high-end number 2 running back still. Even with this disappointing outing, I expect better weeks to come, but not top-end running back talent or top-end running back production.
Yeah.
Well, guys,
I don't think you can consider him RB1. I don't even think you can consider him a high-end RB2, the way that this offense has looked, the way the offensive line has looked. He said that the ankle injury is going to bother him the rest of the season. So I think he's here's my trademark, rock solid RB2, but that's really all you can account unless he starts to show some of the flashes, which we just haven't seen this year. He's been too beat up.
Sweet, guys. We have a couple questions in here before we move on to our next game. Malachi wants to know Kareem Hunt or Devonta Freeman tonight. So I think this one might be interesting. Kareem Hunt, his first game back for the Browns. Devonta Freeman in a confusing backfield for the Ravens. Jay, we'll start with you. Which of these 2 players would you be starting?
That's tough.
It's really tough.
If I'm gonna play the fence here. If you need the safer option, I'll go Devonta Freeman. I don't see necessarily a high upside with him, but you're more likely to get the 10-ish, 8 to 12 points from him. Kareem Hunt, you could wind up with a big fat 0, or you could have a big game. So if you need upside, I would go Hunt. If you need the safer option where you've got a solid lead, you just need a little bit of production, I would go Freeman.
Josh, what about you?
I think Jay did sum it up well. Like Kareem Hunt absolutely has more upside. Devonta Freeman is absolutely safer. I I lean the Freeman side just because I want to see what happens.
JL?
Yeah, I'm with these guys. I lean Freeman, but Kareem Hunt is not far behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I lean Hunt. I know we're nervous about the injury, but game script wise, I think this offense is going to have to run through Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt tonight. The Bakers beat up, and their only alive receiver is Jarvis Landry. So I'm perfectly fine.
Half alive,
pushing Kareem Hunt out there in my lineup. Also, YouTube Face says, I'm new to FanDuel. Can you guys give me some tips, please? It would be highly appreciated.
I got you.
Go ahead, JL.
Check out the FanDuel. They have beginners contests. So contests for specifically for beginners, so that you don't have people, the sharps coming in there and stealing everybody's money. You're playing with a bunch of people who haven't played before. And so they're around the same skill level. That'll be a great place to really learn, get your footing. Then I would say just check out a bunch of different resources. FanDuel itself has a bunch of resources to help you be better at DFS, be better at playing on their platform. Great content creators on the platform, including ourselves, shameless plug, to help you really be prepared and informed going into playing each week.
Yeah, and just a general tip. The type of lineup you're going to want to build is going to depend on the contest. So make sure you're paying attention to the type of contest you're entering. If you're entering a tournament with 20,000 people, you need to take some shots. You need to have some people in there that aren't going to be widely rostered. You need to take your shot on the Anthony Schwartz in tonight's game. Know what I mean? These kinds of players that you think will be low roster but have a chance at exploding. Now, if you're in like a cash game, a double up, a 50-50, make sure you guys are using a slightly safer lineup, because all you want to do there is finish in the top half to double your money. So make sure you're looking at the size of the contest. That's going to change the direction you want to go with the players that you're putting in your lineup.
And to go off of that a little bit too, real quick, look at the entries in the contest as well. There's some that are single entry where each person can only put in one lineup. There's some that are multi-entry where people can put in literally 150 lineups. So if you're not going to do that, I would avoid those contests, especially if you're starting out. Go for the one entry, the three entries until you really, those are the professionals that are doing it, every day, day in, day out. So I would gear towards the single entries myself.
Great question. Really great question.
Great question, guys. We're going to move on to our next game. It is the New England Patriots versus the Tennessee Titans. Hello, C-Rose device.
That is my niece, Carly. So
hi, Carly.
Hey, what's up?
Because the New England, why can't I say
the New
England Patriots defeated the Titans of Tennessee 36-13 in this contest of American football. The Patriots continue to roll against a beat-up Titans team, missing most of their receiving options and some rushing options as well. So this game, the Patriots came out on top.
Yes, they did. And these two teams are like two of the top teams in the AFC, especially coming into this game. The Titans have been riddled with injuries. So these teams are going in completely different directions right now. The Titans going down, the Patriots on the rise. But the Titans, like you said, Simon, have been riddled with injuries. They lost Derrick Henry a few weeks ago, their best weapon. And then A.J. Brown was just put on the IR coming into this week, their second best weapon. These are two of the best playmakers in the NFL, in my opinion. So the Patriots, on the other hand, they have looked fantastic lately, and nothing changed when this game was played out. The Patriots came into this game as 7.5-point favorites, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, and obviously they covered the spread, beating the Titans 36-13. On the Titans side of the ball, their passing game, man, it was a complete mess, wasn't it, guys? It was a complete mess.
It's hard to watch.
It was kind of hard to watch, right? So let me just get these stats up here. Ryan Tannehill, 11 completions this whole game when they're losing 36-13, 21 attempts, 93 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 5 carries for 25 yards. It was a mess. And now the most productive wide receiver was Nick Westbrook. Akine. Yeah, he had 2 catches. He had 2 catches on 5 targets, 1 touchdown. Guys, this was a mess. I know the Patriots defense has been playing great, but I do not feel comfortable starting any of the pass catching options on the Titans until the A.J. Brown comes back. That includes Ryan Tannehill. Now, I was pleasantly surprised with the running backs on the Titans. I do believe that there will be a lot of fantasy value to be had here. We just got to, choose the right player. So I have 2 questions for you guys. Going forward, who is better rest of season? Dontrell Hilliard or Devonta Foreman? And I'm going to come to Jay first. Jay, what do you think?
So you had to come to me first.
I am. So just to give you some context, Dontrell Hilliard, 12 carries, 131 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have a fumble. He had 1 catch.
Sexy.
It was
so
sexy. Beautiful.
And then Foreman, 19 carries, 109 yards, 1 catch, 3 yards, and also had a fumble. So both these guys had fumbles, but it didn't seem to really limit their playing time. Jay,
it's really close, but I'm gonna lean Hilliard simply because he is likely to have more of the pass catching role. I think they're both going to have similar. Foreman's going to get probably some more carries, but Hilliard, even though he only had 2 targets in this game, we saw last game his role is the pass catching back. So with no other passing options outside of the Cody Hollister, Des Fitzpatrick, Mecole Pruitt, like it's going to get ugly. They don't have many people to throw the ball to, so I slightly lean Hilliard.
I'm with Jay on this one. It is very, very close though. But even though we didn't see the receiving chops come in on this game, which is surprising given the final score, right? You would think that they would want to get the passing game going. Dontrell Hilliard has shown he can find success on the ground as well. And I'll take the receiving upside whenever there's some question marks. I mean, Jay said it. He got 10 targets in the last game, I believe. I know we didn't see that this game, but a player with that kind of receiving upside is the one I'm going to choose.
And JL?
I agree with both these guys. It's the receiving work that really does it for me. As long as Hilliard continues to get to the receiving work, he's going to be more game script proofed than Deonta Foreman, and he's really going to fill in that role that we were all expecting Jeremy McNichols to fill.
Guys, I agree with you all completely. I'm very impressed by Hilliard. But the question comes down to, do you feel comfortable actually putting him in your starting lineup? They're on a bye next week, but do you think you can play Hilliard? We're saying that he's our preferred option. Do you feel comfortable putting him into your lineup?
Absolutely. Last 2 weeks, right? He's got in week 11, he had 15.2 fantasy points, PPR fantasy points against Houston. This week, 17.3 fantasy points against New England. Absolutely. These are games that they're kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum here. Not I guess not opposite ends of the spectrum, but the Titans have been playing kind of weird games than what we'd expect given who they've beaten so far in the season. And Hilliard has been a major piece and fantasy relevant both games. So it's absolutely, I'm comfortable with it.
Love it. Simon, do you agree? Is he a flex?
Yeah, he's a flex kind of player. Whenever I'm looking at that, like you're comfortable, or maybe not comfortable, but you can start guys like Tony Pollard each week. You know what I mean? With some level of confidence. So I think you can start Dontrell Hilliard. It's not the safest option. You don't know what's going to happen with this backfield entirely, but this Titans team likes to run the ball, and he's one of the primary ball carriers for them. I think he's startable rest of the season.
And Jay, flexible?
Flexible, yes. I'm not comfortable. I'm okay with it for lack of a better term. It's still, it's only 2 games and he's come out of nowhere. So comfort isn't there, but yeah, I think he's definitely a solid flex start.
Fair enough. So let's move on past the Titans side of the ball to the New England Patriots. Their offense looked really good today. Mac Jones continues to show off his accuracy. So Mac Jones, he had 23 completions, 32 pass attempts, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 carries for 11 yards. It was sexy watching him out there. He is an accurate passer, guys. And Kendrick Bourne, look at him. 5 catches, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers, 5 catches for 98 yards. Both these guys look good. And Hunter Henry, again, like always, he needs a touchdown in order to be successful. And he was not successful for fantasy purposes today because he didn't get that touchdown. Now I have 2 hot takes for you guys. Right here. Hot take number 1, Kendrick Bourne is the best fantasy option on this offense and should be started every week. That's just one. That's one combined. All right. He is the best fantasy option on this offense. How does that make you feel? Jay, tell me how that makes you feel. I'm saying best fantasy option, period. Over Damian Harris, over Ramondre Stevenson, over Jacoby Myers, over Hunter Henry. How's that make you feel, Jay?
How's it make you feel, huh?
Yeah.
Jay, tell us, Jay. What do you think, Jay?
I gotta say, I think you're right. If you would have said this 3-4 weeks ago, I'd say no, you're wrong. It's Damian Harris.
I'm a madman.
The way that Ramondre Stevenson, the Rhino, shout out Sheehan, this has become a split backfield. They're both getting usage. They're more of, Damian Harris was looking like a high-end RB2 for a while there, but I think you're right. The way that Mac Jones has looked, it makes me feel weird, but yeah, I think you're right.
Simon, what do you think?
I don't know if I can go that far. I think he
Okay.
is clearly the best receiving option for fantasy on this team out of all the tight ends, all the wide receivers, absolutely top of that list. Man, positional scarcity alone, though, might make Damian Harris like the more valuable
maybe.
start. But that's like
I said
that's
best,
like
not
nitpicking,
valuable.
right? Yeah.
I'm joking.
You might be
I'm
right there. You
joking.
might have me there.
But JL, do you agree? Is it good, EB?
Good.
I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna stick with God. When you throw Damian Harris in there, I think I would say he's probably the most valuable. But even in the wide receiver core, I think I would give the edge to Jacoby Myers. He's got a higher target share
in PPR.
In PPR, yeah, he's got a higher target share than Kendrick Bourne. It's not by a crazy amount, but just in the last 3 games, Jacoby Myers' target share is 21.7%. Kendrick Bourne 16.9%. And just this game today, Jacoby Myers had 25% of the targets, while Kendrick Bourne had 19% of the targets. And so I think eventually that will correct recency, like fantasy points wise. Kendrick Bourne has come out on top, but I would give the edge to Jacoby Myers here.
And when it comes down to it, targets are one of the most important things I look for, especially in PPR leagues. However, it looks like Kendrick Bourne might be a red zone weapon, which can set you apart, right? Where Jacoby Myers seems to not be able to score touchdowns. However, my next hot take, and we'll just move past this. We don't have to talk about this, but my next hot take was you're never going to feel very comfortable starting Damian Harris going forward because of Ramondre Stevens, because of the offense just looking good without, a running game, with Kendrick Bourne performing, with the Rhino, Ramondre Stevenson playing really well. I don't think you're going to feel comfortable, but that's my hot take. We don't have to talk about this. Let's get out of here.
I don't think it's a hot take. I think you're right.
I don't.
I think it's a lukewarm take, and I'm right there with you, Josh. I'm on that one. Guys, are we ready to move on to our next game?
Sure.
And Josh, did you have more on this one?
Oh, no. That's it.
There we go. Let's move on. We've got the best game of the day, the one everyone was looking forward to. 2 of the top. I'm just kidding. It's the Jets versus the Texans.
I was wondering what game you were going to.
Was there a game that anybody was?
These 2 and 8 powerhouses going up against each other, and the Jets won. It wasn't thanks to their offense at all. Zach Wilson made his not so triumphant return. He played poorly, but did get his second win as the Jets starting quarterback. And he should be shaking the hand of every single person on that Jets defense for getting this win for him. The Jets defense played fairly well today, kept the Texans only 14 points, giving them the win. With Zach Wilson coming back and struggling in this return, guys, we can see it right here. 14 completions, 145 yards, did not throw a touchdown, had an ugly interception as well in this game. Are we worried for Elijah Moore? Just for some context, the last 4 games prior to this one, and that is without Zach Wilson, he was averaging almost 8 targets a game, 6 receptions, 84 yards, and an average of a touchdown in all 4 of those games. He had 1 game with 2, 1 with 0, but the other 2 with 1. This game back, he still had 8 targets, but he only had 4 receptions for 46 yards and no touchdown, and Zach Wilson did not look very good. Josh, if Zach Wilson's the starter rest of the season for the Jets, how are you viewing Elijah Moore? Is it the Elijah Moore we've seen break out onto the scene the past couple of weeks, or is it back to the beginning of the season?
Somewhere in between. I think a lot of people were viewing Elijah Moore as a locked and loaded number 2 wide receiver, a top 20 receiver, maybe even the rest of the season, and a dynasty hero. A lot, and we see this every year where like wide receivers will have, or any fantasy player has this little window of just elite production, and people get so super excited. And I'm not saying Elijah Moore's a bust by any means; he's going to be great, but he's somewhere in between what we thought of at the beginning of the season and what we thought of the past couple of weeks, right? So he's a solid flex play every week still.
JL, are you with Josh on this one, or are you lower on Elijah Moore? Or do you think he retains some value more similar to what he's been doing previous to Zach Wilson coming back?
He definitely has value. Like you said, Simon, he is the target share leader in this offense, as we've seen the last few weeks. And this week was no different. You said 8 targets, which was 36% of the targets on this offense. But that offense is not passing a lot, and it's not moving a lot. And so it's a similar type of situation to what you have with like DJ Moore or Darnell Mooney, where even though they're target share leaders on their team, the opportunities there, they're not quality opportunities. And so I think Elijah Moore is going to be a week-to-week type of flex guy you can throw in on a good matchup.
which is really unfortunate because it was exciting to see him breaking out. But I'm in agreement with you guys. Zach Wilson's, I don't think he's ready to be the starter. I still am holding out hope that he can get it together, maybe with a couple more seasons. I think it would be really beneficial for him to sit behind a vet, but I'm not sure that's an option for the Jets right now. But hopefully he can pull it together. It's probably not
Joe Flacco
this season, though. Yeah, they could throw Joe Flacco back out there. The other thing,
not elite quarterback.
Sorry, yeah, you're right. He would just get intimidated by Joe Flacco out there on the field. Also, before we move on, Bobby Felicio in here saying 3 generations this year and 4 years ago. Who can say that? That is for your flag football game, Jay.
My grandfather, before he passed away, was out there with us. So
that's awesome.
It was 4 generations out there.
See, JL,
wait, did they
traditions
actually
don't have
make
to be
that
unique
tradition?
to be great.
Like, no,
Yeah,
I think they might have made it.
We created the whole concept, actually.
That's incredible. Guys, the other question on this Jet side of the ball has to do with the running backs after Michael Carter got placed on the IR. It seemed like a slam dunk, plug and play Ty Johnson. He's been the guy that seemed like the next back up, right? Everyone just assumed it was going to be Ty Johnson taking over, and that is not what we saw today. Tevin Coleman had 16 attempts for 67 yards, and Ty Johnson only had 6 attempts, but for 42 yards, so he was more efficient. Coleman 4.2 yards per carry. Ty Johnson 7 yards per carry, but on very limited attempts compared to Tevin Coleman. JL, of these 2 running backs, while Michael Carter is out, he's on IR. Which one of these would you prefer to start?
I think based on today's game, none of them is the answer. But based off today's game, obviously Tevin Coleman, it's very suspicious you left out the esteemed Austin Walter, though, there, Simon.
Yes, of course.
9 carries, 38 yards, and the nice vulture touchdown.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just completely left him out.
It's none of them. But if I have to choose, it's Tevin Coleman.
Austin Walter, my apologies for just disrespecting you like that. Jay, are you in agreement with JL here that you think it's Tevin Coleman?
Well, I had to check and see if Austin Walter was actually an NFL player because I had no idea he even existed.
He was elevated from the practice squad like last week, I think.
But yeah, I'm with JL.
For you,
he had a carry for 3 yards last year.
Oh, nice. Wow. That's impressive.
No tread on those tires. You know what? There's a positive.
That is true. That is true. That's a good point. I want nothing to do with this backfield until Michael Carter comes back outside of the most desperate situations.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this one. There's not much else on the New York Jets side of this ball. And you know what? There's not much else on the Houston Texans side of this ball either. The only thing I have to say here is that Brandon Cooks is the only startable player for the Houston Texans outside of Tyrod Taylor in Superflex leagues. In Superflex leagues or 2 quarterback leagues only, there is a second startable player on the Houston Texans, and that's Tyrod Taylor. I'm not starting anybody else in this offense besides Brandon Cooks or Tyrod Taylor in a Superflex league. Josh, is there someone else you think can be started? I know Phillip Lindsay was just cut, so maybe some of the running backs are interesting.
No, I think you summed it up very well. Those are the only people I feel comfortable that I have any comfort starting whatsoever. And yeah, Brandon Cooks, he's losing that trust I have in him a little bit. I know he had the touchdown, but like without that touchdown, we are looking at him like, oh my God, can we even put Brandon Cooks in our lineups anymore? So the running backs are getting some work. So if you're really desperate, David Johnson or Rex Burkhead, I don't like either of them though.
JL, what about you?
I agree with you, except for the point about Tyrod Taylor in Superflex leagues. I think he's startable in 1 QB leagues as well. He's someone that you might even consider throwing in your FanDuel lineup. He's like, since being back, he's been fairly consistent. And let's see, PPR doesn't matter here, but in the last 2 games, 18.08 points, 19.32 points since the bye. He played the Titans and then the Jets this week, obviously. I think in a good matchup, Tyrod Taylor is absolutely a startable QB, like definitely a streamable option in season-long leagues.
Jay, how do you feel about Tyrod? Are you more in line that he's a QB2, or does he have that QB1 kind of upside for you?
I lean more towards you. I was disagreeing with JL until he said good matchup, streaming option. Yeah, I could say I could see that. But he's not somebody I'm looking to get in my lineups in 1 QB leagues.
Yeah,
makes sense, guys. We're going to move on from this dumpster fire of a game. That's all we need to talk about here.
Let's get out of here.
We're going to move on to the Carolina Panthers versus the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins laid the beat down on the Panthers today. And guys, we got so much to talk about here, but I just got to say, Jalen Waddle is becoming one of my
good.
favorite players in the NFL. He is so much fun to watch. And then the Waddle touchdown celebration gets me so bad when he waddles around the end zone.
Just hold on, because we're gonna get there. Okay. That Waddle. It was my daughter was in here when I was watching that game. She said, "Why is he dancing like a penguin?" It was funny.
Got a waddle.
But speaking of dumpster fire, Cam Newton did not look very good. Under 100 passing yards, 2 interceptions, and 1 rushing touchdown, and he was benched in the second half. The game got out of hand. But we'll just go ahead and dive right into this question. Shout out Simon on that one. We'll start with you. Was this just a case of Cam Newton knocking off some rust, or is this going to be what you can expect from him going forward? How do you value him the rest of the season?
I think this was a bad game. Cam Newton is still a top 12 quarterback for me rest of season. He's got that rushing upside. This game got out of hand for the Panthers. He was trying to do too much. And that Miami Dolphins defensive line was feasting today. Not just on Cam Newton, PJ Walker as well, whenever he came in. Not every defensive front they play is going to be as dominant as the Dolphins were today. So I think Cam Newton's going to be fine.
Joe?
Nope.
All right, Josh, let's go. You got a nice take on that.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous about this whole offense. Like I'm starting to question if it was actually Sam Darnold's fault earlier in the season. You know what I'm saying? PJ Walker can't even perform in this. No, I'm joking. But Cam Newton, he's got the rushing floor. As long as he's getting the rushing touchdowns, he's going to be okay. Christian McCaffrey has some concern. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into that, but I don't think he's a top 12 quarterback.
Jail.
Yeah, I don't think he's top 12 rest of the season. I'm more aligned with Josh. In the last 2 games last week, 189 passing yards. This week, 92 passing yards. And last week, 21 passing attempts. This week, 5 passing attempts the whole game. And so the Cam is kind of a glorified running back at this point for fantasy purposes. He's got a bye this next week, and then he's got Atlanta, which is a pretty decent matchup. But then Buffalo, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. And if for some reason, and if you're playing in week 18 or you're playing DFS in week 18, you've got Tampa Bay again. All of these are not great. All these are not great matchups. They're tough defenses apart from Atlanta, and so I'm not super bullish on Cam Newton as much as I was last week with the 2 touchdown game.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. I think that this is going to be what you can expect from the rest of the season if he doesn't have that rushing production. We saw the end of last season in New England that he doesn't have the arm strength that he used to. Christian McCaffrey rolled his ankle. He wasn't in most of this game. So if he doesn't have Christian McCaffrey, that's just one other weapon that they don't have to worry about. So I think he's more of a QB2 versus that borderline QB1 that we were looking at. Christian McCaffrey, there's really not a whole lot to say. He rolled his ankle. He had 35 yards, no catches. Matt Rule said that he go ahead.
I was just sad.
Yeah.
I was just sad. I'm sorry.
He did come back in after rolling his ankle, and Matt Rule said that he could have played. He just didn't have the same explosiveness. I honestly think it was just the game was out of hand. I think he'll be fine. I could be wrong, but I think long term there's nothing to really worry about. DJ Moore, even though Cam Newton didn't have that great of a game, he had 4 catches, 103 yards, and most of that came on 1 long touchdown where he beat the defender for a 64-yard touchdown. And that's the thing about Cam Newton.
It wasn't a touchdown. It was a 64-yard play, I believe, right?
It wasn't. Oh, you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That was still it was a duck. It wasn't a great pass. DJ Moore just got past the defender. It wasn't that great of a pass. So I'm still very hesitant on DJ Moore the rest of the season. I don't know what I think he's a wide receiver 2 at best.
I'm with you, and that's really disappointing for me to say. Me saying Cam is a top 12 quarterback option is not me saying that he has any receiving options that are top 12 receiving options. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just not enough volume here. There's not enough volume in this offense going forward. I think he could be borderline wide receiver 3.
It's a really small pizza.
Yeah,
very, very small pizza.
Yeah, it's a Pizza Hut that you just throw straight in the garbage. Moving on to Miami, Tua had an okay day, 230 passing yards and a touchdown, but that 1 touchdown went to Simon's favorite guy this week, Jalen Waddle, who had 9 catches, 137 yards, and the said touchdown. So, Simon, we will start with you and work our way up. Where do you rank Waddle the rest of the season? Top 30, top 20? How are we looking?
That is a tough one. Where do I rank Waddle rest of season? He's definitely moved up the past couple of weeks, right? I think we've seen this Miami Dolphins offense. I said the Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
We've seen this Dolphins get moving
That's
in
shirt or
the
something.
past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But
Let's go
Jalen
Dolphins.
Waddle, rest of season, I think he's moved up a tier in my mind where I was kind of having him with like the Hunter Renfro's, Devonta Smith's. I'm viewing him a little bit higher. He's up there with like the not quite Deontay Johnson level, but maybe I would rather start Jalen Waddle than Mike Williams right now, I think. So that's probably a wide receiver 2. Solid, like a solid wide receiver 2, not even on that fringe.
Jail.
Yeah, I think he's a maybe mid to back end wide receiver 2 rest of the season. He still has his bye coming up. I believe he's wide receiver 21. Going into this week, he's the wide receiver 21 in PPR. He still has his bye in week 14, but up next he's got the Giants next week in week 13, bye week 14, the Jets week 15, and then the Saints and the Titans week 16, 17, then New England in 18. So I think Waddle can keep this consistent fantasy production. He's the clear target share leader on this team, 25.3% target share in just the last 3 games, which is up exactly 2 percentage points from his season-long target share, which is 23.3%. So he's consistently getting the opportunity, and this Dolphins offense has not the worst matchup going forward.
The Dolphins.
I'm sorry.
Correction.
Yes.
Jalen Waddle's locked and loaded wide receiver 2 for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you on that. I think he's
more in the back end, but
yeah. And the thing is too, if you told me that Will Fuller, which he still may not, but Will Fuller and Devontae Parker are supposed to be back within the next few weeks, so that could take away a little bit of the target share. If you told me they were out the rest of the season, I might think of putting him as a top 15 option, but I just don't think, even though Tua has played better, I don't think there's enough in this offense to provide that when those guys are back. But Myles Gaskin, he actually performed 2 weeks in a row, although
it's broken.
It was only the simulation is broken. 49 yards on the ground, but he did have 2 touchdowns. He chipped in 2 catches for 3 yards. But Philip Lindsay, who was just signed to the team, he had 12 carries to Gaskin's 16. So, yes, he did have a decent game, but you have to be concerned. So, Josh, we'll start with you. Are you concerned with Philip Lindsay's usage in this first game with the team?
Oh, no. No. They were getting Myles Gaskin involved in so many different ways. He was running a wildcat quarterback on the goal line. Gaskin's a part of this offense.
Yes.
Sure, Philip Lindsay's going to be a part of it as well. He's going to get carries, but Gaskin's got his role. You can start him every week and feel fine, I think.
For me, I don't think, look at the carry count for Myles Gaskin this week. Yes, Philip Lindsay got 12, but he got 16. Last week was an outlier with 23 carries for Myles Gaskin. His carry count has been more in line with what he saw this week, even with Philip Lindsay there. So I'm not too worried. I don't think this eats into his production. I just think it's an additional back for this Miami Dolphins offense. He was getting 13, 15 carries regularly without Philip Lindsay there.
Jail?
Yeah, I like Myles Gaskin to go forward. He's definitely the guy on this offense. I'm not too worried about Philip Lindsay. And like I said, the matchups for this Dolphins is pretty good going forward.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys. I'm not too worried about Philip Lindsay myself, but people just looking at the box scores and see, he only had 4 less carries might be concerned. But like you said, Josh, they were using him all over the field. I really like Myles Gaskin going forward.
Sweet, guys. We're going to move on to our next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And, oh, man.
Dear Lord.
Honestly, I think it was just the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not even sure I should say Steelers here. Final score 41-10. And the Bengals complete their sweep of the Steelers on the season. And I believe it was the first time since 2009 that they've swept the Steelers.
Yeah, this game, I'm expecting, no one expected this outcome. The Bengals were favored by 3.5 points going into the game. They certainly covered the spread on that one. Big Ben, he looked awful. He looked truly awful. 24 completions on 41 attempts, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and 1 fumble. His offensive line was just not giving him any sort of protection. Najee Harris didn't do much in this game either. 8 carries, 23 yards, 3 receptions on 5 targets, and 14 receiving yards. That's not great. It's not what we expect out of Najee Harris. Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool both did fairly well fantasy points wise. And Deontay Johnson had ridiculously had 14 targets this game, crazy high number of targets. So I think we can expect them to sort of eat week to week. But Josh, how do you feel about Big Ben going forward? I know that he has been sort of the butt of the jokes lately. Everyone's saying he's lost a step. How is Big Ben affecting this offense in terms of fantasy?
Yeah, he's lost a step. He's lost more than a step. This will be his last year in the NFL. He can't hit the deep throws anymore. He's a dink and dunk quarterback that you'd like to think he makes the right decisions 95% of the time. But again, he had 2 interceptions, 1 fumble today. He's not going to lead the Steelers to any more Super Bowls. They need to move on.
Yeah. How do you feel about Big Ben, Jay? How is he affecting this offense?
I mean, he's rest of the season, even though Najee Harris had a bad game this game, I think he's the one that you want in this offense because of what Josh said. Big Ben doesn't have the big arm that he used to. He's not able to get the ball downfield. We already saw it in a game was it like week 2 or 3 where he got like 19 targets or something like that. So in PPR leagues, Najee Harris is the guy that you want. We were excited for this offense with Big Ben because now with Juju hurt, everybody thought, both Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool the targets were going to be more concentrated to those guys. But the way Big Ben looks, you can't trust either of them. Chase Claypool is boom bust, and Deontay Johnson's the wide receiver you want to start.
I'll disagree with you there. I do think you can trust Deontay Johnson, especially in PPR.
I'm with Josh on that one. I think I can trust him, but Chase Claypool, I'm not trusting him.
Yeah, and I misspoke. I meant to say, yeah, you're right. I agree with you on that. Deontay Johnson, you can trust. I think his upside is limited the way that he's not able to get the bombs down the field like he was.
Full agree.
Yeah, I think I'm still bullish on Chase Claypool going forward. He got 8 targets this week. Only pulled in 3 of those targets for receptions. Three receptions for 82 yards. No touchdowns this week, unfortunately. But I'm fine plugging Chase Claypool in going forward as well. I mean, I don't think he's going to return that maybe back end wide receiver 1 or a high end wide receiver 2 value that a lot of us were expecting going into the season. But I think without Juju there, he's definitely worth throwing in your lineups every week. What do you guys think about that? How do you feel about that, Simon?
I disagree on the Chase Claypool front. You mentioned he got 8 targets, but only hauled in 3 of them. And a lot of that was not on him. That's on Big Ben not being able to hit the throws that Chase Claypool finds success on. So even though he's getting 8 targets, imagine someone says you can have 8 slices of pizza and then throw 6 of them on the ground right in front of you. That's not really 8 slices of pizza.
Well, 5-second rule, and you pick them up and you're still good. So.
They throw them on the ground 30 feet away from you, and you're not getting there in 5 seconds.
Well, you know how fast I am.
You wanted 8 slices of pizza.
Try picking up 6 pieces of pizza in 5 seconds. That's gonna be tough.
It's still good. It's still good.
But to take the pizza out of it, I just don't think these targets are valuable targets for him. He needs someone who can hit him on those deep throws to return value consistently. Now, he will get in the end zone again this season on a long bomb, and he's going to help fantasy managers that week. But I think most weeks you're going to be disappointed with Chase Claypool in your lineup.
Claypool's talented, guys. He's
really
talented.
He's so
what you just said
Big Ben is not anymore.
Exactly. He can't hit those throws. So
I think it's just recalibrating expectations. If you were expecting him to be a wide receiver 2, that he's not going to be. I think if he's my wide receiver 3, perfectly fine with that, because that's the type of guy that, if he has a big game, you're able to push you over the top.
Yeah.
But if you're depending on him as your wide receiver 2, then that's a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, I think outside of the injury has certainly affected him as well. But outside of that, I mean, I don't think he's been terrible. He's scored plus 10 fantasy points in most weeks this season, and so I think there's a healthy disagreement here, healthy variation of opinions that you could take into account.
I'll fight
moving
you.
on, fight me. I dare you.
Just kidding.
Oh, we throw all your pizza on the ground.
If it's pizza, fine. On the other side of this ball, the Bengals balled out. This was absolutely a T. Higgins week. But we'll start with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had 20 passing completions on 24 attempts, 190 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have an interception. Not much rushing, but he did have a rushing touchdown. Joe Burrow, he's back. I'm assuming. How do you feel about Joe Burrow going forward? Are you comfortable playing him week to week? I know that he sort of had some weeks he just hasn't showed up, like last week, I believe. Josh, how you feeling about Joe Burrow?
I'm feeling okay. He's a streaming option, but he doesn't have many good matchups coming up. Unless you consider week 16, which isn't close, against Baltimore, a good matchup. He's probably not someone you're getting excited to put in your fantasy lineup the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, and the just the amount of weapons on this offense, I think that's what gives me like a little bit of optimism for Joe Burrow. Yeah. Joe Mixon had an incredible week. Joe Mixon, I feel like he's been proving all the haters wrong this season, and this week is no exception. 28 carries. Let me say that one more time. 28 carries.
How many?
165 yards. 28 carries, 165 yards.
30 touchdowns. Carries last week.
30 carries last week. Joe Mixon, he is the man.
Josh, one more time. We just got
Let's go. Here we go. Jay and I did a video coming in the season talking about hyping up Joe Mixon, how much we love Joe Mixon coming in the season, and he's put it together, and he just proved it again this week, right, Jay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Joe Mixon's a great running back. He's a great running back.
You two said it. You two definitely said it. No one else.
No one else in the world.
I did not like Joe Mixon at all either. That was not me.
Rest of the
Were
season.
you on the video?
The video. We weren't invited. Rest of the season. Where does Joe Mixon finish fantasy wise? Simon, start with you.
Well, JL, I think you and I need to record a video about Joe Mixon so that we can talk about him rest of the season. So after
before the season?
It's too late.
It's
too late.
Well, you guys aren't invited to this one, so stop acting so jealous. Joe Mixon, rest of season. He's a top 5 guy rest of season for me. The volume that he's getting, honestly, I don't think it's preposterous to say he's a top 3 guy rest of season. I know they've got some tough matchups, but he's in that range. Who do you want more? Like there's a very short list of names that you should be more comfortable starting than a running back of this caliber, getting this kind of volume and an offense moving the ball like this. Man, I'm so excited for Joe Mixon rest of season. Top 5 guy.
So let me ask you guys this: DeAndre Swift or Joe Mixon rest of the season?
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Jay?
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon or Alvin Kamara rest of the season?
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon.
Leonard Fournette or Joe Mixon?
Keep going, man. Go higher because it's Joe Mixon.
You're gonna have to say like
CMC or Joe Mixon?
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon. The injury concerns, the way the offense.
He's a top 3 running back, Simon. You're right.
Say Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler or Joe
Austin
Mixon?
Eckler.
Austin
Eckler.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that's about where the line is.
Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor.
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon.
I think
Najee Harris or Joe Mixon?
Joe Mixon.
It's close.
Yeah.
Those are like the
right.
Cordero Patterson or Joe Mixon? I'm just kidding. I mean, Joe Mixon, has been a great value, will continue to be one of the most consistent running backs out there for fantasy purposes. Outside of that, T. Higgins, we had a T. Higgins week, 6 receptions on 8 targets, 114 yards, and a beautiful, beautiful touchdown. And one that was so close, but they called back. It should have been 2. Jamar Chase, 3 targets, 3 receptions, 39 yards. Tyler Boyd, 2 receptions on 2 targets and 13 yards. We talk about this every week. It's a carousel. It's a carousel, and one week you're going to get a blow-up guy or two guys who do really well, or I don't know if we've seen a week with all 3 of them doing incredibly well. Does this change your opinion at all of these 3 guys, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, rest of the season? Jay?
No, I think you said it perfectly. It's going to be a carousel. I think they're T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are in the high-end wide receiver 2 range. If Jamar Chase doesn't get that long touchdown, he's going to have games like this. I still think he is the top option in this offense, but I think his floor isn't quite the floor of T. Higgins because you are going to see games like this where T. Higgins is able to get more receptions just based on the where he plays on the field.
Yeah. How do you feel about it, Josh?
Jamar Chase, he's a lower end wide receiver 1 for me, and T. Higgins is a mid wide receiver 2, and never feel comfortable starting Boyd while they're both healthy.
Yeah. Simon, do you have a different opinion?
I was just, no, it's a carousel, but it's a carousel I want to ride. I'll plug either of those guys into my lineup each and every week, Jamar Chase or T. Higgins.
Every carousel is a carousel I want to ride.
Man,
Maria said
some of those animals are creepy.
Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon, easily.
Also, what's up, JFew? Welcome in, Jordan. Glad to have you here. And he's saying, let's go Ravens. Sorry, I'm a Browns fan. I don't know why I said it with so much excitement there.
I love it.
Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next game. As much as I want to keep talking about the Steelers getting blown out, we're going to move on to our next game, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Indianapolis Colts. And man, was this a fun one to watch. Just when you think the Colts pulled it out, boom. No, they didn't.
Yeah, this was the best game of the day, in my opinion, at least. The Buccaneers came into this game as 3-point favorites, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, and look at that. They covered the spread. They beat the Colts 38-31. But either one of these teams, like Simon said, could have pulled out the victory. Going back and forth, I was like, oh, the Colts, well, the Buccaneers won. And then even the Buccaneers were up 7. There was like no time left. The Colts had no timeouts. They had a kick return that almost scored a touchdown. It was crazy at the end. This was an awesome game to watch. But from a fantasy perspective, I digress. On the Buck side of the ball, their passing game didn't look great, right? But however, Leonard Fournette had an amazing game. Fournette's he freaking 17 carries, 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 catches on 8 targets for 31 yards, and another touchdown through the air, 4 touchdowns altogether. Do you guys want to play a game?
Let's play a game.
Let's play a game. I want to figure out where you guys rank Leonard Fournette the rest of the season. We just kind of played this a little bit with Joe Mixon, but so look, I'm going to just run down some running backs here. I don't think we're starting Leonard Fournette over these guys. Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara. Let's just say all those guys are healthy. But, we're getting to DeAndre Swift here. Leonard Fournette or DeAndre Swift?
I still want
I'll
Swift.
take Swift, but it's close.
All right, that's
very
fair.
Close.
JL, what's to say Fournette?
Oh, I want to. I'm going to say Fournette. I'm going to take the high-powered offense.
Then there's Nick Chubb.
Chubb.
Me too. Ezekiel Elliott. Let's say he's splitting time. He's got that injury. I'm taking Fournette over Ezekiel Elliott probably the rest of the year, guys.
That's close, but the comments from the coaching staff in Dallas are what make that one's close. But I think I'll go Fournette with you as well, Josh.
Let's get down to these other running backs. That was the top 10 running backs I just listed, in my opinion. Then there's James Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Darrell Henderson, David Montgomery. Leonard Fournette's above these guys, right, guys?
All of them. Every single one.
Whoa.
Leonard Fournette is a top 12 running back the rest of the season. I just wanted to make that point.
I think I would still, and this is going to sound weird for me because I was so off of him
Saquon?
in the offseason. No, James Robinson.
Oh.
I still think I'd take James Robinson over him ever so slightly. It's splitting hairs, but the other guys, Barkley,
he's a top
Henderson,
12 running back.
Yeah, he's top 12. He's running
That's
back.
Crazy, guys. That's crazy. That was just a little game I wanted
He was
to play.
available on the waiver wire in
points.
so many leagues going into the first week or two.
Yeah.
Everybody thought it was Rojo's backfield. Sorry, Herms.
Cordero Patterson or Leonard Fournette rest of the season?
Give me Fournette.
Yeah, give me a Fournette.
Simon?
And I won't ask that question on the next game. Alfred has a question for us. Fournette or Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones.
I'll take Aaron Jones, even with the injury coming back. But man,
Josh,
take Fournette.
I'm going Fournette too.
You guys want to do a rest
so
of
you would
season
take
water?
Swift? You'll take Swift over Aaron Jones too, then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Wow.
I get it with the
AJ Dillon's usage.
Yeah.
Bingo. Plus, he's missing. He's also missing a game next week too. So for a bye, but you have to take that into consideration.
And Leonard Fournette's just been so heavily involved in the passing game lately. It's amazing to see what he's been doing. I'm very bullish on Leonard Fournette. However, we love Leonard Fournette, right, guys? We're all excited about Leonard Fournette rest of the season. A little variety there. But I am concerned about the pass catching options on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gronk is back. He had the best receiving game by far. 7 catches, 10 targets, 123 yards. But none of the wide receivers did anything. Mike Evans, 5 catches, 16 yards. Chris Godwin, 1 carry, 4 catches. He had a fumble. I'm nervous about the receiving options. Antonio Brown's going to be coming back sooner rather than later, and we're just not going to know who exactly is going to get the majority of targets. I think all these guys are going to be fine going forward, but I think we have to lower our expectations. Do you guys agree, JL? Do you agree?
No, I think this was a one-off. I think this was more of a one-off type of week than it was any sort of trend. We just haven't seen.
How are 4 guys going to have fantasy success here, though? Who's the odd man out?
The competition is tough, but we've seen Tom Brady support all these options. I think we're not going to see weeks like this from Leonard Fournette week to week. I think they were beating the Colts on the ground, and Fournette was the kryptonite of the Colts, and so they relied on him. They just kept feeding him. 17 carries, like you said, 7 receptions on 8 targets. That's a lot for a running back. I think that this was a single game type of thing. If you look at Chris Godwin's performance throughout the season, he hasn't really had a week like this. He's had a couple down weeks, but not one this bad. And Mike Evans, he is more boom or bust. He has some of these, but he also hasn't really had a week like this since week 1 against Dallas. And so I'm not as concerned. I think it'll correct itself. I think these guys are still going to be fantasy viable going forward, and I'm confident plugging them in every single week.
I just don't think they're wide receiver ones anymore.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I think that once Antonio Brown is back, you're not going to know, who's the guy that's going to have the big games. But coming into this season, that's what we expected. So I think you're right. I think they're going to be wide receiver 2s. Sometimes AB is going to have the big game. Sometimes it's going to be Chris Godwin. Gronk, I think, is going to take a step back a little bit more into what he was at the beginning of the season. He was more of the red zone threat, a little more touchdown dependent. I think he's still a locked and loaded tight end 1. But I don't necessarily think he's going to have big games like this when Antonio Brown is back as well.
I think this is a carousel just like the Bengals, but before the game, Gronk went over and hit the shutoff switch on the carousel and said, "This is my game. No one else is playing today." Carousel.
Now that's a lie. Gronk would never turn off a carousel. He would ride that carousel all day long.
He took all the animals off and replaced them all with statues of Gronk. So you just rode on Gronk's shoulder. It's a Gronkacel.
Gronk ride Gronk.
Running around. You want to ride me?
So, guys, I just want to get through this game. I'm sorry. So, it's a carousel?
No, but I do disagree that I think Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are still wide receiver 1s rest of season.
Okay.
Tom Brady's had a bad couple weeks, and by say bad, it's been down based on what we saw at the beginning of the season. I expect him to turn it on down the stretch, make sure they get their playoff seeding that they want. He's a great quarterback. This is a great offense. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are great receivers, and they should be considered top 12 guys, in my opinion.
Fair enough. I love you guys. Indianapolis Colts. The Colts look good today, but they couldn't quite keep up with the Bucs, right? Wentz was solid, but had a lot of turnovers. Jonathan Taylor did his thing. He kind of made up for it with the touchdown at the end. Jack Doyle had a good game, but I still don't want him in my fantasy lineup. Now, Michael Pittman, he's a little concerning to me because he does have a very tough schedule coming up. I think a lot of people had him as a locked and loaded top 15 wide receiver the rest of the season. Guys, real fast. I'm just going to ask each one of you, Michael Pittman or DK Metcalf? Is it DK Metcalf?
Metcalf.
Yeah. Michael Pittman or DJ Moore?
Pittman.
Moore.
Yeah, see, that's a question there.
Maybe.
That's like kind of line. How about Michael Pittman or Jalen Waddle?
Give me Waddle.
That's crazy, right? That's crazy.
That's tough. I don't know. I guess Waddle.
I think this Colts team has realized that JT is the key to this offensive success, and so that really downgrades Michael Pittman like a lot. It's not a slight downgrade. I'll take Waddle as well.
Waddle for the touchdown dance.
Fair enough. That just, I think, goes to show that Michael Pittman, he's not a locked and loaded top 15 wide receiver. He's still a guy you're probably playing every week, but a little concerning.
I think Pittman, Moore, and Waddle are all in the same tier. The wide receiver 2s that can have big weeks.
Yeah. Touchdowns really help Pittman.
Yep.
And that's really all for this game.
Guys, we are going to move on to another barn burner, 2 of the best teams in the NFL. I keep talking about the great games. The Atlanta Falcons going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they won this one 21-14. And guys, I'm just going to get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the concern I have on the Atlanta Falcons side of the ball. Kyle Pitts seemed like he had broken out, and then Calvin Ridley leads the team or stops playing this season. And I just want to give you some stats for Kyle Pitts over the past couple weeks. Last 5 games, he hasn't had over 62 receiving yards in a single one averaging 38 receiving yards and has not had a touchdown since week 5. We always talk about that top 6 tight end tier. Kyle Pitts being one of those guys. We've been saying it all season. Jay, is Kyle Pitts still in that top 6 tight end tier? The guys, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews. Is Kyle Pitts out of there? Is he still in there?
He's not. He's out. I mean, the way that this offense has looked, and it's unfortunate because I think if Calvin Ridley was there, I think he still would be. But the offenses know that, you're going to let Cordell Patterson be the guy in this offense, and you're going to win the game. Kyle Pitts is pretty much all they have through the air. Russell Gage is performed admirably, but other than that, you're starting him every week. But expectations for redraft is he's in that middle tier and I think you got to drop Hawkinson down. It's Kelce, and then it's Kittle, Andrews, and honestly, I think you got to drop Waller down too. So I think he's like the 4th tier. The Hawkinsons, the Pitts, those type of guys that. Yeah, they have the opportunity. They have the talent to have those big weeks, but you can't rely on them.
Josh, rest of season, Kyle Pitts or Dawson Knox?
Oh, they're in the same tier. I was about to say that the tiers are all mixed up for me. Travis Kelce's in a tier by himself. Mark Andrews might be in the next tier by himself. I'll put George Kittle in there and Darren Waller if he is healthy, but we still got to get word on that. Then it's Kyle Pitts, Gesicki, Hawkinson, Knox, Gronk. Maybe you throw Freiermuth in there. So this has just created a larger tier for me, honestly, all in all.
Yeah, I was looking through the list of names and some names that stuck out. Like, you're now considering Pitts against guys like Goddard, Gesicki. Hell, Zach Ertz has been playing very well recently. Like, it's not that lock.
I'd rather start all 3 of those guys in Pitts right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. The other thing is, I know people were concerned with Cordell Patterson coming back from the injury, but you have no reason to be concerned. Not too much we need to talk about there. He's the RB10 in points per game and in total points in PPR on the season. You're starting Patterson each and every week. JL, I'll ask you this. Going into the playoffs, would you rather have Cordell Patterson or Ezekiel Elliott?
Elliott.
It's such a what if, right?
Josh, what about you? Elliott or Patterson?
It's like I hate doing it. It's Elliott just because I'm gonna just assume that he's healthy.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of the range. What about Jay? Earlier you said James Robinson, you would take him over Fournette. What about Patterson? James Robinson or Patterson?
I'd still go James Robinson.
Josh, Patterson, and JL?
I would go Patterson over James Robinson.
Yeah. Outside of those 2 guys, though, there's really not many 2 options you're starting on this Falcon side of the ball. You can take a flyer on Russell Gage. He's the primary wide receiver in this offense. He's going to have a couple decent games down the stretch, but he's not someone I'm going to trust. On the other side of this ball, on the Jacksonville side, Jay, I wanted to come to you for this one. Laviska Shenault had 9 targets this week. Does that give you any hope that he can find some fantasy value rest of season, or is this Jacksonville offense just a black hole for fantasy?
I don't have any hope for Laviska Shenault until Urban Meyer is not the coach. He's had games with lots of targets previously, and I wish they would use him the way they were using Jamal Agnew, because that is the role that Laviska Shenault is made for. You see it when he gets the ball; he's explosive. But I don't trust this offense. Outside of James Robinson, I don't trust anybody in this offense, and unfortunately, that includes somebody who I love very much, Laviska Shenault.
Guys,
James Robinson or bust. That's it.
Yeah, James Robinson or bust, but they seem to forget he exists in the red zone. They forgot a couple times today, so hopefully someone jogs Urban Meyer's memory that James Robinson is alive whenever they're down there on the goal line. We're going to move on to our next game, the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Denver Broncos. The Broncos winning at 28-13.
Yeah, and even though the Broncos won the game, Justin Herbert had a pretty solid game from a fantasy perspective. Over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have 2 interceptions, and he rushed for 36 yards, so chipping in a little bit on the ground as well. Austin Eckler, he didn't have a good rushing game, but boy, did he have a good receiving game. 6 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. That's just what Austin Eckler does. I don't think there's any concern for him. We want to hop into this question real quick.
Yeah, we got maybe 30 seconds to answer this one. April wants to know Lockett or Hunt on flex, full PPR. JL, Lockett or Hunt?
Oh, it's Lockett. Easy for me. Again, he's
Lockett.
going up against Washington, so it's a really easy matchup for him.
Josh?
I agree. Lock it.
Lock it. Lock it. Lock it in.
Lock it in. It's unanimous.
question.
I do like Hunt this week. I think you can start him, but it's lock it for me as well. And April was answering Knox on that one.
So yeah, Keenan Allen had a solid game, 7 catches, 85 yards. Mike Williams, that JL, I know this hurts as hot as he started. Mike
now
Williams,
you remember players I like.
4 catches, 39 yards. JL, how do you value Mike Williams rest of the season?
I think he's a back-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. He's still getting a high target share, a high percentage of the targets in this offense, not nearly as high as it was in the beginning of the season. Last 3 games, 17.3% of the targets. It's just not quite converting to fantasy production. It's not many touchdowns. Today's a perfect example.
Yeah. And on the other side of the ball, Teddy Bridgewater did get hurt. He was out. We got to see the Drew Lock experience, and he did what Drew Lock does, through a terrible interception at the end of the first half that led to a touchdown for Austin Eckler. Not much to talk about there, but the rushing game did pretty much what they've done all season. It was split. Melvin Gordon 17, Javonte Williams 14. Javonte Williams got the touchdown. Javonte Williams got a little work in the passing game. It's pretty much a split 50-50. I know everybody's wanting to crown Javonte Williams a league winner, a guy who's going to take off down the stretch, but I've been saying it. You guys can vouch. I've been saying it all season. Melvin Gordon isn't going anywhere. So rest of season, Josh, who would you rather have in your lineup, Javonte Williams or Melvin Gordon?
Javonte Williams, but they're razor thin. They're in the same tier of running back on the same exact team. I project more or less what we saw today going forward, where Gordon might be getting slightly more carries. It seems like they do like getting both of them involved in the passing game, but it's a 50-50 split, really, in my mind. And
there wasn't much done in the receiving game, but that's pretty much expected. The Chargers are one of the best defenses when it comes to the passing game, so it was a down game across the board, but I'm not concerned about anybody in this receiving core.
Guys, we're going to move on to our next game. We've got the Los Angeles Rams versus the Green Bay Packers in this one. The Packers coming out on top 36-28. And Matthew Stafford continues his streak of losing to teams that are more than 5 games over 500. Thank you, NFL Network, for that weird stat.
Matthew Stafford was streaking? Is that what you said?
Oh, yes, he was streaking.
Impressive.
Very impressive. Yeah, this game, high scoring. It was I think everyone was expecting this to be a great game, and it was delivered. There's a few things I want to touch on in this game. First one being on the LA Rams side of the ball, Odell Beckham was tied for the most targets in this team with Cooper Kupp. Each of them got 10 targets. Odell Beckham had 5 completions on 10 targets, 81 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 7 completions for 10 targets and 96 yards and a 2-point conversion. And then Van Jefferson had 3 receptions on 9 targets for 93 yards and a touchdown. Josh.
Yes.
How are you feeling? I know Cooper Kupp's locked in. You're starting him week after week. OBJ and Van Jefferson, they seem like more the type of players who could be on that borderline. People aren't confident to start. Where do you put them rest of the season? Are you confident playing them week to week?
Yeah, so Cooper Kupp, nothing changes in my mind for him, personally. But Odell Beckham, this is only his second game growing in this offense, and I love what I saw. 10 targets, like you said, 9 targets for Van Jefferson. I would rather have Odell Beckham in my lineup than Van Jefferson going forward.
Simon, how are you feeling about OBJ and Van Jefferson going forward?
Yeah, I'm with Josh. I really like Van Jefferson, but OBJ seems like the number 2 guy here. So I'll be on the OBJ side of that one.
Yeah, Van Jefferson had a beautiful touchdown today.
He did. God, I love him. He's so good. I just don't think this is the year.
Yeah.
And then on the Green Bay side of the ball, I really think the only thing that's probably worth noting that wasn't what we really were expecting is just commenting on the Aaron Jones being back, being active again. A.J. Dillon still got the majority of the workload, 20 carries, 69 yards, nice 5 receptions, 5 targets, 21 yards, and a touchdown. Aaron Jones had 10 carries for 23 yards. And no receptions on 1 target. I read this as Aaron Jones is coming back from injury. They're easing him back in. Jay, how do you feel about Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon going forward? Are they both viable to throw into your fantasy lineups?
I think they're both viable. I still think that Aaron Jones is the guy that you want in your lineups, but we've seen it here recently. A.J. Dillon looks good, and they're not afraid to use him. I honestly don't understand why I know, we were talking about earlier, it was pretty much a must-win game for the Packers, but with the bye coming up and the way that A.J. Dillon's looked, I would have sat Aaron Jones. Granted, I'm sitting here at my computer and I'm not an NFL head coach, so there's a little bit different there. But I still think Aaron Jones is more of a back-end RB1, high-end RB2, and Dillon's more of a flex play or a bye week replacement when it comes to running back. But I think you can play them both with some confidence.
Yeah, guys, we are going to move on to our last game real quick. We're coming up on the end. I know Sunday Night Football is starting, but we got one more game to talk about, and that is the Minnesota Vikings versus the San Francisco 49ers.
This was another one of those great games. On the Minnesota Vikings side of the ball, Kirk Cousins did his thing, what he's kind of been doing all year. He's an underrated fantasy quarterback, a guy that you can play, especially in a good matchup, I think, every week. And look, he got over 20 points in a lot of formats today, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Dalvin Cook, he did come up. It looks like he got a little injured at the end of the game. We got to keep an eye on this. I do not know how significant it is, but if he's out, then Alexander Mattison could be a league winner for a lot of people. Justin Jefferson, I wouldn't be too concerned with his 9 targets. He's still got 9 targets, 4 receptions. Not the greatest fantasy game. Adam touchdown. Thielen got 2 touchdowns again. I mean, on that side of the ball, there's really not much I think we have to delve into. We just got to keep an eye on the Dalvin Cook situation. If he's injured, Alexander Mattison is going to be started every week. But on the San Francisco side of the ball, Jimmy Garoppolo had a fine game. It was not that impressive.
It was a Jimmy Garoppolo game.
It was a Jimmy Garoppolo game, right? It was an Elijah Mitchell game, which it came down to. 27 carries, guys. 27 carries for this guy with the broken finger. We were all a little concerned. Even with Deebo Samuel getting 6 carries himself. Elijah Mitchell, guys, he's a must start going forward. I mean, he's a great start, but he's in my fantasy lineups going forward. Do you guys agree, JL? Elijah Mitchell, you feel pretty confident putting him in your lineup?
Yes, I didn't put him in this week because in the leagues that I roster him in because I was worried. I thought they were easing back in. They did not ease him back in.
No.
Spoiler. 27 freaking carries.
It wasn't just 27 carries. He got 5 catches on 6 targets with a broken finger.
27.8 points in PPR. Yeah, it's like rookie of the year type thing.
It's about to heal. Hold on. Snap that thing in half.
So guys, yeah, I think he's a top end running back too the rest of the season.
Is Deebo Samuel a top end running back too the rest of the season?
He also is. Deebo Samuel just succeeding. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little concerned for Deebo Samuel. He's not getting the targets or receptions that we were seeing earlier in the season, which is leading to Brandon Ayuk having more success. But if Deebo Samuel's not getting these rushing touchdowns, you got to be a little concerned, I think, in my mind.
Yeah,
just a little concerned.
I'm with you, Josh.
And Kittle had a bad game, but it is what it is. He's still like top 3 wide tight end for me, so I'm not too concerned about that.
I'm with you on that one, Josh.
Ravens game, let's go.
The Ravens and Browns have kicked off. They're facing off right now. It is Sunday Night Football time. Before we leave you, a couple reminders, though. If you are watching this, that means you're already on the FanDuel YouTube or Twitch channels. If you're on Twitch, hit that follow button. And if you are on YouTube, like this video and subscribe to FanDuel. They have a whole team of awesome content creators creating content to help you win some money and win your league. So you don't want to be missing out on any of that. And a reminder, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find all of us over there. Jay at GminJ, Josh at FYF Josh, me at FYF Simon, and JL at FYF John Luke. Right before we go, Justin wants a prediction from us. He said, do I win? I've got Heineke, and I am up 8 and playing Hollywood and Andrews. Kind of nervous. So this is Heineke up 8. So Hollywood and Andrews would need to score 8 more than Taylor Heineke.
Is that what up 8 means? I wasn't sure.
I'm just doing some quick math in my head. I'll give you 54% chance of winning this game.
It's Josh math. TM.
Jay, what about you? Who wins this one?
I'm gonna go with the Hollywood and Andrews side.
Justin, as am I. I would take the Hollywood and Andrews side of this one. One of those guys has a big game, and it could be enough with just an average game from the other one. Could be both. Could be both. So, JL, what about you?
I think Andrews alone outscores Heineke by 8. By
Wow.
What?
That is aggressive. I will water bet that one if you want to.
No, thank you.
Don't take that chance.
Just like no responsibility for that
I'm
take.
good.
It is,
I am good. That's in the ether. I am no longer responsible.
any takes made in the last 2 minutes of the show don't count. That's the rules, guys. That is going to be it for us today. Justin in here. Josh, I think he was aiming this one at you.
Trading makes fantasy fun.
Trading does make fantasy fun. We are out of here, and we will see you next week, guys. Until then, adios.
Peace.
Bye.